Denver school superintendent has avoided our questions about school safety for months, until today, when he told us that concerns about safety aren't that widespread.
We have over 200 schools. You're hearing from a couple.
The first of Denver's promised daily updates on how many people are being moved out of homelessness. Did the CU-Nebraska game really bring in $18 million for the region? A prime fact check tonight. A climber who uses a wheelchair made it to the top of Mount Elbert with some expert help. And roll that Fox News-style graphic because we have breaking news. In the war on pickleball, a suburban county considers an emergency declaration. Tonight on Next. The leader of Denver Public Schools says it is the right call to keep kids in class, even if they're charged with violent crimes like attempted murder and need a daily pat-down for weapons. Dr. Alex Marrero has been dodging our questions on this for months. So today, our Chris Vanderveen just showed up when the superintendent offered to talk to reporters about a different topic.
Some interviews take minutes to set up. This one took months. We sent our first request in July, and in the weeks that followed, we sent more. Denied, ignored until today.
And Chris?
Chris Vanderveen, how are you?
Fine with me, too, sir.
When Dr. Alex Marrero sat down with us for the first time to talk about, among other things, weapons pat-downs.
No, I did it as a principal, Chris. It comes with the territory, but I remember doing them in the South Bronx, right?
It was an attempted pat-down of a student in March that nearly killed two deans inside East High School, both shot while trying to conduct a check for weapons. Marrero told us he's not overly concerned about the policy because he's not hearing from overly concerned staff.
I've met with all leaders. I've asked them, list your priorities. Safety has been named. It hasn't hovered to the top. It hasn't, Chris.
Yet we have heard from staff, most notably the now fired principal of McAuliffe Middle School, who told us 2 days after the shootings at East that district policy had forced him to do weapons pat-downs of a student then accused of attempted murder.
We have over 200 schools. You're hearing from a couple.
Last week, we learned DPS also denied a request to expel a student accused of shooting a man in the head at this apartment complex over the summer.
Should a student accused of attempted murder be allowed to immediately return to the school that they were enrolled in, if that attempted murder takes place off school grounds?
Why wouldn't it? What happens to that student? Shall we kick him to the curb and say good luck?
He says it's sound policy to not expel students accused of sometimes violent crimes, as long as those crimes take place off school grounds.
We're responsible for what we're responsible for, which is the confines of our school buildings and our properties.
As for concerns of staff,
At what point does the safety of the staff enter into your equation here?
Every day.
he says he wouldn't be worried working with someone with a violent criminal record, so neither should they.
And if I had someone who had a checkered past, I'm sure I have them around me. So no, I would not.
Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
Agree or disagree with DPS's expulsion policies, the numbers show that DPS is expelling far fewer students than surrounding districts. Last year, DPS expelled 18 students. Cherry Creek, smaller school district, expelled 159. The security pat-downs continued this school year. We asked recently to get a total from a random day, and they told us on that day there were 23 pat-downs district-wide. An armed DPS security officer is supposed to be present for every one of them. This afternoon, the Colorado Supreme Court denied a motion that could have tossed out the criminal charges against the 5 first responders charged for the death of Elijah McClain. So that means that jury selection will continue for the first 2 officers to go on trial. Suspended Aurora police officer Randy Redeema and former officer Jason Rosenblatt face charges of reckless manslaughter and assault. They, along with the 3rd officer, restrained Elijah McClain in 2019 as he walked home. He had done nothing wrong. Paramedics then injected him with the sedative ketamine. McClain died 3 days later. Last week, attorneys for the paramedics argued the state didn't have the jurisdiction to charge them. Our legal analyst Scott Robinson said that really was a long shot.
Because most Rule 21 petitions are denied statistically, it doesn't come as any kind of surprise from a statistical point of view that the petition was refused or denied by the Supreme Court.
So now jury selection for the first 2 officers' trial is expected to continue tomorrow. The 3rd officer will be tried separately. The 2 paramedics will be tried together last. You cannot deny the impact that Coach Prime has had on CU football, impact on the field and off. Boulder's Visitors Bureau said CU's first home game against Nebraska generated $18 million in economic impact. That number was shared by Coach Prime on his son's YouTube channel. That number was shared during the ESPN broadcast. That number needs a closer look from our Marshall Zellinger.
When college kids are awake at 6 a.m. for nationally televised pregame shows, there's a fair chance they're spending money that otherwise would still be on their nightstands. Buzz does equal bucks. Just how much? That's up for debate.
Last week for the home game, there was an estimated $18 million regional economic impact.
The play-by-play announcer for the CU-CSU broadcast shared a dollar amount that Coach Prime mentioned on his son's YouTube channel.
They say the city made $18 million last weekend.
They are Visit Boulder, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. The estimate for the CU-Nebraska game was regional, not just Boulder, and it was provided by an Oxford, England company that estimates economic impact of events.
That is just for the one game, they are saying, right? 18 million one game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's optimistic.
MSU Denver economics professor Kishore Kulkarni does not doubt Boulder benefits from the success of Coach Prime, with students filling campus at dawn on a weekend and 16,000 more fans at Folsom through the first two games this year compared to last year. It's just the dollar amount he doubts, but not the impact of people making money selling T-shirts or B&Bs filling all their rooms for the night.
They go out to buy probably a beer, and then they go out to buy groceries and shopping. They probably buy a car. So essentially, there is a second round of expenditure that happens with this additional income.
Regardless of what the final dollar amount is, Coach Prime put his finger on impact perhaps more meaningful than money.
I'm not really thinking about the economical impact. Really, I'm thinking about the social impact. I'm seeing more African Americans than I've ever seen before, sprinkling throughout the stands and the stadium and at restaurants and everything, and I absolutely love it.
That can't be denied right now. The reason we even looked at this today, economic impact estimates get thrown around for marketing purposes often. When Taylor Swift was in Denver in July, one estimate had the economic impact at $140 million. But from a tax revenue standpoint, it was minimal. Between sales tax revenue and hotel and lodging tax revenue, the city of Denver saw not quite $1 million more in July this year, Kyle, than last year. I get it, that's just tax revenue. There's other ways to figure out economic impact, but I mean, just $1 million to the city coffer, 140 was the estimate. It felt high.
A lot of these things get tossed out because they're feel-good things, and a lot of journalists will repeat them and not question them because they're not Marshall Zellinger. But the experts you talk to say even this early, like a week or two later, sometimes it's too tough to do the snapshot and be like, that's how much was generated.
Yeah, the professor said, if you're selling cowboy hats and sunglasses, you're getting money that you weren't going to normally get. Maybe 6 months from now, you're going to buy a car. And then it's the trickle down. I should point out, we both, Noah Pransky, NBC reporter, has done this on the Swiftonomics, and if you haven't seen it, check that out, because he has really broken down, if you hear national, how much Taylor Swift is bringing nationally. Check out his check of the numbers, because it's a really good, better than what I just said.
Some of them are very, very flimsy. I will retweet that Noah Pransky article for NBC News during the commercial break. Marshall, thank you. The city of Denver says it is 10% of the way towards its mayor's goal of getting 1,000 people off the streets by the end of the year. The Johnson administration says today's number is the first of what they promise will be daily updates on their progress. The city is setting up an online dashboard to track how many people have been housed or sheltered since Johnson took office on July 18th. So far, as we said, 100 people. The city says just over half of those people have been connected with housing or reunited with friends and family, so they have a place to stay. Rest have gone to shelters or micro-communities, like the so-called safe outdoor sites. Johnson estimates that his housing plan will cost $48 million by the end of the year. Most of that is to acquire transitional housing units. On that front, the city has 200 pallet shelters right now, and there's also a 195-unit hotel that will be converted into temporary housing. Hey, I have to thank you for what you did to boost a nonprofit that trains older Coloradans to go to work in daycare centers and in preschools to help with the worker shortage there. Your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign raised more than $7,000 for the Early Childhood Service Corps. We learned about them because the next viewer was passionate about their mission. You know the work that your $5 donations can do. You've raised more than $11 million that way since 2020. If you know of a nonprofit that is doing great work, maybe you just know about a persistent problem in the community that you're sure somebody is working on, let me know about it. Shoot me an email. I read each and every note that comes to next@9news.com.
I refuse just to lay around. I'm just living a different way of life, real different way of life in a wheelchair.
So she climbs with the help of a group that makes sure that more people can reach Colorado's highest peaks. Hey, speaking of fall color, is going to be worth waiting for this year. It's going to be extra special, but we will have to wait. Get into the reason why next. This year, Colorado's fall colors could be the most vibrant that we've seen in a couple of years. We can thank the weather for that. Might take longer, though, for them to really pay off. That's also a weather thing. The State Forest Service says Colorado's aspen are especially healthy this year. Forest Service says the weather throughout the year contributes to that. We had a sunny September, cool summer before that, very slow snow melt in the spring. Here's the catch, though. Healthy leaves often take longer to turn, so the peak of color, which sometimes comes as early as September 20th, will probably be later this season. And as always, it peaks in the north early, and then it slowly goes down, peaks in southern Colorado latest.
Bingo.
And I still don't think, Danielle, that my kids are old enough to enjoy that. 3 and 5, I feel like that's a couple hours of are we there yet?
Well, like pack snacks or something.
Sure.
That can make it fun.
Then you tell them, we are here, this is it. And I feel their reaction might not be superb.
Well, maybe the wildlife will be out there or something.
True. That's true. Yeah, they did see an elk once from the car, and they were fascinated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be an adventure, your own adventure. You know, it is what it is, right? It should be good this year, though. Tonight, we are watching these clouds start to thicken up and push across the metro area after a beautiful beginning to the day. Plenty of sunshine and highs in the 80s. And now tonight, we're watching the potential for a few isolated showers to rumble across parts of the Denver metro area. Most of them, however, up into the high country. You can see a good batch of thunderstorms cruising across the San Juans tonight. More than 400 lightning strikes out there in the past 20 minutes time. You can see just a couple of light little showers on the west side of town, inching closer toward Castle Rock, and then, yes, a little bit of snow up into the high country right there along the spine of the Continental Divide. Here's the futurecast. By about 7 o'clock tonight, some of those showers racing off the foothills. Again, a couple of sprinkles, some gusty winds, and that really is going to be about it for us here in the metro area. These showers should linger, however, about 9, 10 o'clock, and then everything clears out after midnight. Tomorrow morning should be a nice start to the day, but then again, another round of showers. They're going to be very light, nothing severe, but you will notice those darker skies rolling in the afternoon and evening, and then by about 11 p.m., everything rolls out. Temps slightly cooler, but not bad. Still in the lower 80s for much of the urban corridor, with 60s and 70s to the high country. We'll keep it dry on Wednesday and Thursday. Front slides in on Friday, and then a stronger one on Saturday as we officially welcome in the fall season with highs in the low 70s.
Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert's recent performance of sorts that got her thrown out of the theater in Denver was a lot of things, but it wasn't a surprise. I haven't seen a single person say why I am shocked that Lauren Boebert was rude, disruptive, and belligerent. This is, after all, the Congresswoman who suggested that a Muslim colleague was a suicide bomber. I haven't seen anyone surprised that Boebert did not tell the truth about what happened. Because, I mean, days before, we just fact-checked her latest false claim about migrants. I haven't seen anyone say that it was out of character for the Congresswoman to appear to berate theater staff members who were just trying to do their jobs. Really, the only surprise in all of this is that Boebert, once she got caught, apologized and said that she didn't live up to her values. What? I mean, when Boebert didn't know that the cameras were watching, she was exactly who she is when she does know people are watching. Boebert reportedly asked the theater staff, "Don't you know who I am?" Yes, we do.
I get to roll up to the highest summit and be on top of Colorado and be on top of the world is what it felt like.
She summited some of Colorado's tallest peaks on her own 2 feet and is still doing it, using her wheelchair. A reminder that Colorado's public lands are and should be open to all. And a city in the suburbs says pickleball noise might be an emergency, like a legit state of emergency. First world problems next. Roll that super dramatic Fox News-y graphic because we have breaking news from the front lines of the war on pickleball. City of Centennial is ready to advance its assault on the American right to make a racket with a racket. Centennial's 6-month moratorium on new pickleball courts expires at the end of the month. Tomorrow, City Council is set up to pass permanent restrictions to keep new courts from being built close to homes. And the rules could take effect immediately because City Council is ready to declare a pickleball emergency. Centennial's proposed ordinance would ban the construction of new outdoor pickleball courts within 100 feet of homes and require a sound study for courts 100 to 600 feet from homes. Courts within that 600-foot range would also have to have some kind of noise mitigation, and the games would have to shut down by 8 p.m. Centennial's emergency declaration says the new rules are necessary for, quote, the preservation of health and safety. They are citing acoustical engineers who say the sound of a pickleball hitting the paddle can cause hearing impairment, disturb sleep cycles, and have long-term psychological effects. Centennial City Council will vote on this tomorrow after they hear from the public. Hiking the highest 14er is a bucket list item for a lot of Coloradans, but for one hiker, her list just got a bit shorter. Chris Lane had her dream come true with a bit of help.
October 28th of 2016, I was celebrating my son's birthday, and we went hiking in Clear Creek Canyon out of Golden, Colorado here, and 7 steps into my hike, and I fell 80 feet down the canyon and broke my back. I'll be celebrating my 7th year of life after a tragic accident and became paralyzed from my chest down. Life is too precious, and the things when you say, oh, I'm going to do it one day, and you don't procrastinate because life is good.
Here we go.
A dream come true, Mount Elbert. I was there with 50 plus amazing volunteers through the Lockwood Foundation.
Awesome.
I was their cheerleader. I'm like, come on team, we got this, let's go, woohoo! We saw a beautiful, wonderful sunrise.
We make adventure accessible. We use adaptive devices to help people with limited mobilities get out onto the trail. Hi there, I'm Patrick Minehan, and I am the Lockwood Foundation Adventure and Community Coordinator.
How far we've made this journey.
And it's kind of the pinnacle of our hiking season, where we do one big summit with someone in a chair, and we brought them to the top of Mount Elbert.
I get to roll up to the highest summit and be on top of Colorado. Be on top of the world is what it felt like. I got to summit the highest peak in Colorado, Mount Elbert. So there were a lot of firsts. My first camping since my accident. In a tent on the ground, my first 14er since my accident, and the highest peak, Mount Elbert.
And her motto is get up, get out, and get rolling. And it's just so easy to embrace that and take it to heart because it's just such a good message.
It was really special to me because I fell hiking.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll never forget it. It's just the memories, yeah, it was awesome. But no, I never would have thought I'd ever do this again.
What a group, what an accomplishment. We will have your fiery feedback about school safety and the least surprising congressional misbehavior ever next. Feedback from Bill tonight starts us off. He says, when Congresswoman Boebert tells us that she will live up to her values, how do we know what those values are? He says, seems like it's a moving target. I think I respectfully disagree with you on this. I think she is very consistent in terms of her behavior and values. Her official actions, her unofficial actions in that theater, very consistent. Julie says, thank you for pursuing Superintendent Dr. Alex Marrero for answers. Good to know where we, the teachers, stand. Doesn't sound like Julie's too pleased. Janet says, question to ask the DPS superintendent is how many pupil funding the district receives for enrolling students with violent charges. The safety of other students and staff has to matter too. I'll be honest, I don't know that I think that it's a pupil funding issue. Again, 23 pat-downs on a recent day, so we're not talking about a huge volume, but we're talking about individual kids with which there are huge safety concerns.